The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Good to have you in. It's Hail Varsity on a Thursday. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, and it has been a crazed 24 hours of minimal sleep. I'm not asking for any violin playing, but what a travel experience. Brendan Vogel was in the green room because I said, hey, how's 4 o'clock look? He's like, are you drunk? Sure. No, I am not. Schmidty and Elijah, great to be with you at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865 to dial up. Can watch and subscribe in the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube. Check that out. Of course, Damon and Ravi knocking it out as they wrapped up day 3 at Big Ten Media Days. I should have just stayed there under the table at Lucas Oil Stadium. Also on the program coming up, Brandon Vogel in 15 minutes. Coach Gary Barnett with us at 5. Bill Bender, our chat with Bill, and Nebraska football still a big-time talking point. Nebraska recruiting continuing to amp up as a monster weekend already on the docket for Big Red football with that barbecue coming and looming the 27th. You have the open practice August 3rd. Names you know, right? It's kind of like the Jimmy Buffett greatest hits, songs you know by heart. Names you know by heart if you're a Big Red recruiting fan. David Sanders Jr., Michael Terry, Isaiah Mosey. Ding, ding, ding. Could be finding their way to Lincoln. We'll tell you more. Elijah, how we doing? We'll get our starting 5 shout out. Thank you, dude. Thanks, partner, for all your work back here as we were hustling the last 2 days in Indy. Great times with the Husker faithful. Met a Lincolnite. We'll call her Husker Heather. And she kind of was my travel partner here the last 24 hours or so. So we're flying from Indy to Chicago. Chicago was supposed to get us to Omaha tomorrow night last night around 11 p.m. As the plane is descending, our friends at American Airlines are like, we're just canceling the flight. Peace out. No rental cars available. I have never slept overnight in an airport until last night at O'Hare. Did that. I had to rebook through Southwest, and that sent me from Chicago to Denver. Made the mistake of eating a breakfast burrito. Did have a red beer at 10 a.m. because I had to have one. And then white-knuckled it literally from Denver to Omaha. And got here a little bit ago.
Yeah, about 25 minutes ago you made it in?
Yep. So we're good to go. We're ready to rock, but just travel hell. And everyone's experienced it. So, again, stop the violin playing. Not looking for sympathy, just explaining my last 24 hours.
Yeah, so if anyone in the stream is like, man, Schmidt, you look like you were in the same outfit as you were yesterday in Indianapolis.
You're talking about a Husker Heather, and you're wearing the same clothing. Dude, it was just awful. And most of America, in one way or the other, if you've flown the last 5 to 7 days, you've experienced some bull crap. And for whatever reason, man, it went that way. I dread this expense report. I did not misbehave in Indy. I absolutely dread this expense report. I'm going to have to get myself to Ameristar and get a parlay hit. That's what I'm going to have to do. But it was just brutal.
Yeah.
And then you're hopping along in a damn walking boot. How'd you do it? Oh, golf. Were you drunk? No, it wasn't. That was kind of the theme of Media Day. A lot of sympathetic looks. NU Grandpa is in. Tiger Shark Diver in second. Crew checks in third. Justin, good to have you. Patrick Patrick is here. Good to have you, dude. Ario, good to have you. Ario, formerly Broderick. He changed his name. That's all good. Eat Beef is here. Uncle Jimmy checks in. Crazy Spider Adventures. 3-Putt is here, along with Jack. Jack, good to have you. Black Hills Brennan, bringing the heat. KG is here as well. Jeff, Husker Steve, and our dear friend Steven is in, saying late again. No, we were just getting things configured digitally
what time
for
did
you,
he
Steven.
even comment that?
Huh?
We weren't even late. That was at 3:59.
Yeah.
What are you
Usually
talking
it's
about?
up. The other Dave is here. Dave says, great coverage, guys. Rhule is so confident this year, more so than the fans. Maybe we should all take a big swig of Rhule-Aid. Hey, he had a fun sit-down with us yesterday. That was really cool to get to spend time with Coach Rhule and Giff and, of course, the other Huskers, Benny Scott and Ty Robinson. Tuck, I've been amazed at your fine coverage. It's been great listening. Tuck, thank you, dude. We try. That's why we go. Want to try and get the best stuff we can when it comes to Nebraska football. Appreciate you acknowledging that. Tiger Shark Diver checks in and says, hit that like button. Lot to like about Nebraska's weekend potential. And Will Vogues checks in, says, I'll leave for a little bit. I told Brandon Vogel 4 o'clock. I'm in 4:25. He is very patient. Counter reads Brandon Vogel in a moment. Who's on the line?
We go to Mark. He's got a connection with your flight.
Mark, talk to me, man. Did you go through travel hell?
I did go through travel hell. So the flight that you did not successfully take to Omaha last night, American, I assume you were going to get in, 11 o'clock or something like that?
Yeah, 11:10, allegedly.
Okay, so that plane was likely the plane that I was supposed to fly out on this morning from Omaha to Chicago, which, of course, was canceled because they didn't have a plane.
So they told me weather. They told me, oh, it's weather. I was like, and I'm talking with Roxy, the poor customer service agent. I did not raise my
Was
voice.
her name actually Roxy?
He was.
Oh.
I didn't swear. I just was like, don't tell me it's weather. Please don't tell. I see one little blip south of Des Moines, and we can fly around it, can't we?
Yeah, no kidding. I never got a word on what the situation was, but I think it's ironic that your missed flight turned into my missed flight, and then I had to rebook through with United and blah, 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 blah.
And did you just pay out your like I did to get out?
Yes, I did.
Uh-huh.
Ultimate destination Charlotte, so it was it was a bit of a nightmare, but we made it.
It's all a racket, though, isn't it?
Well, they told me I could have flown out last night to Phoenix and then gone to Dallas and been home tomorrow. Like the only flight they had for you was 3:50 tomorrow. There's no flights available today.
Yeah, if I were to have stuck with American, I wouldn't have flown out till tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
and I would have had to go through LaGuardia and then back to Charlotte. So
Yes, I was I was hoping they would have just handed me a parachute as I'm going from Chicago to Denver, and then from
air
Denver
travel
back to
is
Omaha.
no fun anymore.
Oh,
I don't know if it ever was
it
fun.
stinks.
At least not in my lifetime.
No. Hey,
All right.
best
Hey,
luck, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Our shared pain right there.
Now, here's an idea. Instead of going to the sports book and hitting a parlay to reimburse your flight, let's hit it a little bigger. Let's go hit a parlay to buy a private jet, the Hail Varsity Radio private jet. We can be like Taylor Swift and just take that thing cross country once every 2 days.
Well, Huskers have their own Air Force now.
Yeah, imagine the plane with the Hail Varsity Radio logo on the side, your face and my face on each wing. It'll be beautiful.
I think our dear friends in the Air Force would have to scramble for that. We've got enemy aircraft. These two a-holes, their faces smiling. So let's get into recruiting. And a couple of folks reached out yesterday while we're doing the show and said it is going to be a nice weekend for Nebraska. It could be a nice weekend for the Big Red. And this is the math you have to do on it. Not only is David Sanders Jr. really intrigued by Nebraska, and you've got Josh Newberg for On3 national analyst, His take has always been it's Ohio State and it's Tennessee for the number one offensive tackle out of Charlotte. It really now might come down to Nebraska and Tennessee. And Tennessee's won a lot of battles with offensive tackles. Think about Ginther, the kid out of Colorado. A family friend and a really talented ball player. He loves Tennessee. Talked to some of his inner circle not long ago. But Tennessee is doing work with getting offensive tackles. But Nebraska may have the ace, and that ace has gone to Twitter, Elijah. That ace is a freshman quarterback that is really taking the peer recruiting thing to a new level.
Peer recruiting might be an understatement. I think Dylan Raiola might be the lead recruiter here. We talk about the importance of some of these assistant coaches and their recruiting. I think your quarterback might be the guy who is legitimately the lead recruiter. Like the coaches are going to Dylan and being like, what's up with David Sanders? I don't know that for a fact, but that's certainly the way it feels because Dylan Raiola is the connection between Sanders and Nebraska, and it sounds like the coaching staff
all the way back to Georgia, 4 years ago.
And it sounds like from what we heard from that cut from Steve Wiltfong a couple days ago that the family was sold by the coaching staff on Nebraska. I think it might be Dylan who has to do the selling on Nebraska for David Sanders Jr. I think he might be the one who can get this thing over the line because I don't want to undersell how important it is to have David Sanders Jr. in town this weekend. I mean, last week he was telling reporters, no, I'm not scheduling any more visits. What I have locked in now, that's it. Well, that changed today. He's going to make his way to Lincoln along with, let's not forget here, the five-star Michael Terry.
We're not done. No, Michael Terry
and Mosey. It's the recruiting weekend of the summer in my eyes.
It's huge, and it's before the things settle down and the dead period or no contact thing happens. But you have Terry that has looked at it's Texas, and now Nebraska. Who's the other team? Like whoever he wants, pretty much.
With Terry?
Yeah.
Oregon, Texas, Nebraska.
Okay, I thought it was Oregon.
It feels like A&M is fallen out of that race a little bit within recent weeks.
And then you have Isaiah Mosey, of course, Pop's on staff now, but Isaiah, 4-star commit to Oregon. Think if Nebraska pulls this trifecta, we're talking parlays. You get 5-star offensive tackle Sanders, 5-star wideout Terry, 4-star wideout Mosey. And Dylan Raiola, this went out about 18 minutes ago on social media from Dylan on his Twitter account. Says, Husker Nation, let's welcome David Sanders home. That was in all capitals, all caps to Lincoln. Meet us outside the new Tom Osborne complex at 5:15 tomorrow. I smell another road show, Elijah. Calling all Husker fans. Says, go Big Red. I'll be picking him up at Omaha. Let's hope. Let's hope there's no BS misconnections or
well, do you think Dylan would be willing to pick him up in Chicago and drive him 7.5 hours to Lincoln if that's what it becomes necessary?
I think Dylan's going to just say, bro, I need to borrow the Husker Air Force. We're just going to go get him. 1:30 is when he's going to Epley. Let's show him some love. You're going to have a game day type crowd outside the Osborne complex for one Studley offensive tackle. But this could be monstrous. And good on Dylan Raiola, good on the Nebraska staff, not taking no, and they're competitive. Matt Rhule said something yesterday about NIL that was so true. And we don't need to talk philosophy, we need to talk action. That's the cliff notes of where Nebraska is with NIL. Brother, your collective is doing some overtime, overdrive, if you want to get all three of these guys inked. But it's doing overdrive to make it a possibility. Because there's got to be comparable numbers, I would have to believe, on top of the fact that first priority is wanting to play with other guys you like. Mm-hmm. And you want to be on a team and build and go take a run at a championship for. So the big key here is Dylan Raiola's work, but the other part of this too is the assets you have to have, and that's Nebraska's collective, not just for one 5-star, but it's got to be a major player and reality if Terry and Mosey are part of this decision and showcase this weekend. And
let's take it back to this call to the fans from Dylan Raiola, because I think it is important from an NIL sense.
That is your other game changer here.
Well, think about it. what other school is having fans showing up for an unofficial visit at the end of July? I would argue nobody. I've never heard of anything like this before, especially whenever it's your 5-star quarterback, your anointed one calling for it. The fans are going to show up in droves tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I think that much is clear. And to be a 5-star offensive tackle, which, let's be honest, offensive line, not the sexiest position in the world. Being a 5-star offensive tackle helps. That might be the sexiest of the offensive line positions, but it's still not a sexy position on the football field. To have droves of fans show up for a visit in July, not even for the season, just because your quarterback told you to do so, I think it kind of sells the fact that, hey, while you're here, the NIL, the fans, they're going to take care of you. I think that's kind of a part of the in-between the lines. Read that if you want to for David Sanders Jr. and for Michael Terry and for Mosey, all these guys. Hey, we know that these other schools are players in the NIL scene, but let's emphasize the fans here at Nebraska will take care of you with NIL.
Well, and the other part of it, too, is Nebraska has something that these other schools don't, and that's a relationship with the guy that you feel will be the heir apparent at quarterback. Quarterback, NIL, fan base. That's a big 1, 2, 3 for Nebraska. And you know what could be the fourth? All that confidence Rhule's got with the team in the season. They give you a start winning. Huh? Brandon Vogel, Counter Reed. On the way, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Here he is. It's Brandon Vogel. Counter Reed, counterreed.com. Anonymous is asking if a GoFundMe needs to be started for me based on travel expenses and the travel hell the last 24 hours. Anonymous, I'll let you know. But thank you for your kind option. Vogues, you've been a warrior in the world of Husker football travel and cancellations, man. Did you have to endure your fair share over the years?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if we definitely a lot of delays, but I don't know if we dealt with that many cancellations. There's no like horror stories.
As you're descending to land in Chicago, you get the middle finger.
Yeah, I mean, one of the last times I was at Big Ten Media Days, it was in Chicago, pouring rain, and so I got there first, and the rest of our team was coming, like, supposed to be an hour behind me, and they got delayed, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, the lightning. That was the tarmac lightning with Frost and the crew.
Yep. I'm gonna take the train down there, and I did, but it was still like a quarter mile, half mile to where they were hosting Big Ten Media Days. Got absolutely drenched. So that was about as bad as it got. You know, minus like driving from Lincoln to East Lansing. Not something people do for pleasure a whole lot. There were some rough drives in there.
Was that a hell of a game though? Was a 2012 game?
I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was the 2012 game.
That was worth it then.
And you know, Nebraska, Michigan State, there early in the Big Ten years had a pretty good run of playing some pretty good games.
Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Reed. So one of the first media days, Vogues picks me up and we're driving and we get up early and I was up. Vogues always woke up, but I was doing my asthma machine, my nebulizer, and it's like, it's the electro bong is what I got nicknamed in junior high.
Electro bong?
Yeah. Well, it just steams up, and Vogues has one eye open, and it looks like murder in his eye. He's like, what are you doing, man? And he's got a pillow in his hand. But then we were a whole 4 miles from that, where they shot The Fugitive, that glorious session in Chicago, and we left at 5:30 a.m. and it took 7 years to go 4 miles in Chicago traffic.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. That's probably why we left that early.
No, I know.
I'm a planner, so So we made it. We made it on time that time.
See, that kind of reminds, your nebulizer story kind of reminds me of 3:30 in the morning in Boulder this past fall, where you're rocking the nebulizer because of the altitude. that was like one of those things I went, man, I thought I maybe had it hard here, but Schmidty's over here with the 3 a.m. alarm to get his nebulizer rocking. That's rough. I was able to sleep through it halfway at least.
And then you threw a battery at me. So, Vogues, let's talk about
Colorado.
Yeah, we had to keep tradition. Let's dive into your reaction to this visit weekend set up for Nebraska football on the recruiting front. We'll hit Big Ten Media Days in a second, but the here and now is David Sanders, Michael Terry, Isaiah Mosey. How about old Dylan Raiola for Rush Chairman? Damn glad to meet you.
Yeah, not to get too wild, but when I saw his latest tweet about Saunders, I was like, if he doesn't work out here at Nebraska, like it might be worse than Frost not working out here, because everything to this point has just like checked every box. Here it is. Like the rent has come due. Dylan Raiola went to all these other Nebraska sporting events this whole time. Yeah, he committed to Georgia, but he changed his mind. And now here he is saying, hey, show up. We got a 5-star tackle coming in, which probably in terms of recruiting, maybe it's neck and neck with defensive tackle / defensive line right behind quarterback in terms of where, like, there's just no substitute for talent. So that's obviously big. And then you add the other guys in. I thought from Big Ten Media Days, what I'm sort of writing for tomorrow is like, Rhule did well. He always does well in those sorts of settings. He is a good public speaker. And I thought it left Nebraska in a good place with like some momentum of talking season's done. Now we're going to fall camp. This recruiting weekend potentially adds to that. Even if you get one of those guys, like what a boost that would be. Heading into the actual 2024 season in terms of starting things up with fall camp.
Vogel, it's Kool-Aid season. What if they get all 3?
I mean,
don't even need to play. Don't even need to play the season.
Sim to 2025. Things might get out of control if that happens. But I mean, it's tough with recruiting. Like, these are the things you want to see. Like, Nebraska is trendy right now. That was another thing that comes from Big Ten Media Days, and I'm sure we can talk about how Rhule handled those lines of questions. And when you're trendy, you gotta make some moves. You gotta make some gains in recruiting. And it's not that Nebraska hasn't, but getting involved with guys that baseline in most years you might not be involved with is as good a sign as any.
And I am not comparing Nebraska to Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze, but I do want to draw a parallel of once upon a time, Ole Miss was trendy, okay? And Ole Miss was trendy with a whole bunch of wideouts and a whole bunch of defensive linemen. And what they do with it, they turned it into 2 out of 3 years against Bama, and they won. They outscored Bama, and they didn't even – the quarterback play was not apples to apples. It wasn't chopped liver either. But they had the guys on the outside that made it a hell of a problem for St. Nick's back end to cover and deal with. So that trend, that wow factor, all those casino chips – whoops, I said that out loud paid off. And not only did you get the big fish in the boat, but then – you made a hell of a meal. And you can have both, Vogues, is what I'm spitting out here. Yeah, you can be trendy, but you can back that trend up.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I watched Dan Lanning from home, talk at Big Ten Media Days, and I thought at the podium, like, he did really well. Like, my takeaway from that was like, oh, this is why this guy is like already considered maybe one of the top 10 coaches in college football. He's almost certainly like the number one kind of up and comer. And like, he has a good message and he's combined it with good recruiting. And if you want to get to that level Like, I mean, Oregon, I think, has the third best national title odds based on what I saw today, right behind Ohio State and Georgia. And I think that's legit. Like, there are certain spots, and like Nebraska's not going to sign Georgia and Alabama type classes. Can it sign Oregon type classes? Maybe. And if you get high level talent at some key spots and you keep the focus the same, you kind of keep the focus on culture building, which I think came through with Lanning, the same, you can go pretty high. So it's we'll see. We've got an entire football season to play, and let's see where Nebraska gets after that one. But it's an encouraging sign to see Nebraska in on these type of guys.
Brandon, how long do you think Nebraska's window is to sign recruits that can help out Dylan? I know you have the potential butterfly effect of Dylan, if he plays well, can lead to better and better recruiting classes as a potential. Yeah, the wins can help with that. But how long do you think Nebraska has to sign recruits that can legitimately help Dylan on the field reach that next level?
The rest of this class and probably the next one, like, you know, beyond that, like if everything goes perfectly with Dylan Raiola, like, you know, I think he's your starter this year. He's your starter next year. And you would have him for one more after that. And at that point, you know, at least then anybody signing in the 2025 class would at least be a sophomore for what could be that potentially final Raiola year. I mean, we're like jumping way ahead here, but like the time to strike is now in terms of like building around him if he's to be the quarterback in Nebraska for the next couple of seasons.
Vogues, what'd you make of Rhule talking about 10-2, 8-4, not circling? He didn't commit, and how he navigated those projections was truly a masterclass, where he's not screaming unbeaten, but he doesn't want to wade into the negative pool, the P pool, so to speak, and say, yeah, there's 4 losses on our schedule. I mean, he was just perfect with it.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate term. Like that quote jumped out to me. I know he was asked versions of that questions multiple times, and always kind of stuck to the, like, I'm confident we're going to be good, which in what I'm writing for tomorrow at counterread.com, you know, it kind of sent me back to 2019. Probably the last time Nebraska was this trendy, and Bill Moose at Big Ten Media Days, you know, I think said 6 wins, which was odd for Moose.
He knew it.
He was
What did he
usually
know?
fond of making a splash.
I'm not here a lot, but what I am.
Yeah. So, you know, like, don't put a number on it. Just be like, I expect us to be good. And I thought, you know, and yeah, the other piece of that quote, you know, I expect us to be relevant in the Big Ten, I think matters a lot too. Because how long has it been since that's been the case? I mean, you can make the argument at the end of October last year, Nebraska was relevant in the Big Ten. It was alive to win the West Division title. It looked like it was going to make a bowl. But I think Rhule's talking about a different level of relevance. And relevance as a definition has changed in college football as we enter a 12-team playoff era.
Is it fair to say, Vogel, here with our last about 15 seconds, that anyone in the top 25 could be considered relevant with just the 12-team playoff now?
Probably. You know, minus the only one G5 team's getting in, but beyond that in the major conferences, yes.
Vogues, hang on 2 seconds. I want 2 more minutes on the other side, bud, if I can, to hear more about Counter Read with Brandon Vogel, also author, Dream Like a Champion, him and John Cook. Incredible book. Vogues continues some overtime with him at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmidty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Old pal Will Compton giving a nod. One of those Jeremiah Johnson type nods from Twitter with Dylan Raiola leading from the front, getting that offensive tackle to campus. Brandon Vogel with us. Counterread, counterread.com. Mr. Chengretti from Indiana was beautiful with not only his brash personality, but y'all want to talk about Indiana football? Look at all of you. That was pretty good. You mentioned Lanning. I bumped into Coach Foster in the bathroom. I was washing my hands, and he was waiting to dry his hands. And he was just a good dude to talk to, despite all the arrows he took for his opening statement yesterday. But he was asking about my ankle, so I did appreciate that. But he also was trending one way. Lincoln Riley was a little prickly, and that was entertaining to see. And you know, you have a handful of guys, Vogues, that some are moving into the neighborhood, some want to get out of the neighborhood. What do you think of PJ Fleck?
Well, he's been around and been in the Big Ten long enough that I've come to have a pretty good beat on what a PJ Fleck podium session is going to be. At least really steered into some of that college football video game talk, which like I understand. But Kurt Signetti.
I went Chingretti. I went Mafia.
Try to get some college availability back and play for the Hoosiers. I was in on that. He gave me. He's from Pittsburgh, which is about an hour from Youngstown. Gave me strong Bo Pelini vibes, just with the like demeanor and mannerisms. Like, he did his thank yous. He said honored to be here, and then he got right into like y'all picked us 17th. Here's what happened the last two times. One of my teams has been picked second to last, and can't argue with it. As he put it, he's like, that's history. Like, that's what happened.
What's really interesting, I think, about Indiana is they have a potential chance at Julian Lewis, number one quarterback in the class, and that's the type of player that you think, if Signetti could get him, could completely reboot a program, a la Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. I mean, it's the same story we've seen in the past year with the juice and now the trendiness of Nebraskan recruiting. Indiana, if they can go land him, and the connection is Indiana's quarterbacks coach was Julian Lewis's, I believe, personal quarterbacks coach early in high school, and even dating back to middle school. They have a really good relationship. If they're able to land Lewis, which would be a tough pull, but if you're able to land him, that could completely change the fortunes of Indiana football under the Signetti reign, if you will.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be pretty good this year. I've thought that for a little bit, like bringing a bunch of guys with him from JMU. Like, I understand that JMU, you're moving from the Sun Belt to the Big Ten, but I think it put them way ahead of where they would have been without some of those guys. Like that Nebraska trip to Bloomington in October is going to be interesting.
It will be. What's, aside from the obvious, have you come up with like your scariest game of the year? Like you got a bad feeling? Is it Indiana? Is it Rutgers?
Those would both be right up there. I think Indiana's moving up the charts the closer we get to the season. I think Rutgers is one. You get that one at home for Nebraska, so that helps. But that's, it's almost bound to be. We'll see what Nebraska's offense looks like, but that's almost bound to be kind of a slugfest. And you have those kind of games, they can go one way or the other really, really easily. Colorado's still kind of in the mix there. Like it's hard to know what to make of the Buffs. Nebraska not having beaten them 3 previous times, given where Colorado's program was at, I think weighs into this. That's a high stakes game in week 2, I think, for Nebraska. So all of those would be on the list.
Colorado's got to be number 1 for me, in my eyes, just with the way they throw the football. Nebraska new defensive backs coach, still some doubts at the opposite corner spot, though we did learn yesterday Bly Hill might be ready to go for game 1. He's not going to be ready to go for the start of camp, but maybe game 1. There's still some doubts there with me, with Colorado also having a what sounds like an improved offensive line, which there's only one way to go with that offensive line, which was up, but it sounds like it's improved. They can protect the quarterback. They can protect Sanders. I don't know. I look at that and I say that becomes a scary.
It's just going to be a fun season. I mean, I think it's going to be a intriguing season, and it could be a white knuckler. I think it's time for the team, and Rhule said as much, man. When it gets tight, go get it done. Because you've been waiting on it for a long time as a player, first of all, but you've been waiting on it for a long time as a fan base. So go have some fun with those 24-17, 31-28 deals. Now, if people start putting up 28 points on Mr. White, that's going to be a little weird.
This is a change of topic here. We have a question in from Steven I want to get Brandon's take on. He asks, who is going to be the first coaching casualty in the Big Ten this season?
I mean, it's weird. Like, I don't know that we enter the year with a ton of guys on the hot seat. I think
Lincoln Riley's 3-3 after 6.
What's that?
Said if Lincoln Riley's 3-3 after 6.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the big one, and they could be. They've got I'm forgetting their schedule off the top of my head at the moment, but they've got a tough one in week 3.
Well, they open up with LSU, don't they?
Oh, they open up with LSU. That's right. And then they've got, I think, 2 of their tougher Big Ten games right away. I think Nebraska's got a good shot in that game by the time it goes out there. We'll see. Lincoln Riley's probably up there. Things get rough for Bielema if they are treading water. I don't know. Like, I don't think anything will happen this year, but like Ryan Walters, I think has a lot to prove at Purdue after year 1. Like, if they got off to a pretty rough start, things could get a little bit dicey there. Those are kind of the 3 that come to mind.
Vogues, you were touching on what's coming up with Counterread, counterread.com. Tell folks about your work, Aaron Sorensen's work, and, of course, Common Fan Podcast you've been a part of as well.
Yeah, so for tomorrow at Counterread, and this will be a free story, but go ahead and go over there, get subscribed as a free subscriber at the very least, so you make sure you don't miss it. I'll have my takeaways from Big Ten Media Days. Pretty extensive look, I think, at the things that jumped out to me, and then there's still, even after that, plenty more to go through in the week ahead. And the thing I like most about Big Ten Media Days is that after that happens, it's like it's football season in terms of fall camp getting ramped up around the country. So we're in it now. We're back in season mode. But if you do go there and sign up as a paid subscriber or a free subscriber, free subscribers get 7-day access to all of the archives. A lot of good stuff in there. A lot of stuff I'm proud of. A lot of stuff that's still relevant for the season ahead that, wrote a couple of months ago.
There he is, Brandon Vogel, Counterread, counterread.com, where you can find and subscribe. Vogues, we'll talk Saturday, bud. Thank you.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. Big thanks to Brandon Vogel. Find him on our different platforms for the podcast. Take us with and hear us when it's convenient for you. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the audio portion. Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. We keep growing those stream numbers, and it's just awesome. Off season, during the season, to see folks checking us out on Hail Varsity YouTube. And also follow and like Hail Varsity Radio Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Give Elijah a follow at Herbelessence at Schmidt_radio. The listeners in the stream and across the Hail Varsity Radio Network are so, you guys are awesome, man. Jack, I was in Denver briefly, a bad burrito and an expensive beer for breakfast. That's what Johnny Cash did. Jack says, Schmitty, you could have just done the show from my place in Denver. Jack, next time, dude. Next time. I had the equipment with me. And a crew. That's wrong. Says I deserve a Purple Heart. Grandpa Schmidt got one on a beach in France. God rest his soul. So Yeah, it's been entertaining. It's been one to draw patience from the last few days. And how about Nebraska fans? We have fans in the stream offering to bring a 30 rack of ribs, Elijah. Tell me more.
30 rack of beer, I believe.
Okay.
Brett in the stream says he's bringing a 30 rack to the Sanders welcome party tomorrow.
Okay, 30 pack or 30. Do both. Brett will help you drink and eat.
You
30 pack, 30 rack of ribs.
30 rack. You never heard
for an offensive tackle might be the deal maker.
You never heard a 30 piece case of like Bush be called a 30 rack? Maybe is that just a my generation thing?
We just called it a 30 pack.
My generation, I hear a 30 rack more, which is
you go visit that big old cardboard cutout of Keith Stone, and you throw it in the fridge or your garage fridge for a while because God knows it was warm for $8.99.
Would be a funny welcome party though to have just Husker fans passed out in front of the.
No, it wouldn't.
In front of the training facility.
That's not how you want to.
Throwing up everywhere.
That's not how you want to do it.
It'd be funny.
It's not alcoholism. They're just nervous about your decision. Is where we're going to go. That's how we're going to spin that one.
Toss David a beer on the way in.
No,
wait,
he's 17. Do you want to? No. Nothing to see here. 489-1240. 489. I'm going through and deleting all of these stupid flight things. Oh, on a side note, I go out of town. Last time I was out of town, I was golfing in western Nebraska with Jaybird. It was awesome. What does the bunny do, my lovely wife? She gives Sterling Schmidt the worst haircut in America.
And that is a dog for anyone who is
my
maybe
dog.
not a common listener.
That was my birthday gift. She didn't hold our other child down and just shave his head. No. She gave our Bernedoodle puppy, that was my birthday gift. Happy 46. Sterling got butchered by the barber. And then he went to the vet yesterday. Sterling has got a cone around his head.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh. Poor guy.
Sterling's still a guy.
Barely.
Barely.
Lost his manhood a little bit.
A little bit. We've got to put Mommy on blast for that. Bad haircut, removal of 2 important items. Oh, when Daddy's gone, Sterling. I love you. All right. Coach Barnett's on the way. Hour 2, Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back into it. It's hour 2. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Good couple of days in Indianapolis with all sorts of Husker thoughts from the coaches or from the coach and the players. We welcome in Hall of Fame football coach Gary Barnett as we are counting down to kickoff. Coach, of course, great things with Colorado and Northwestern. Coach, how's the week been? Thanks for a few minutes. What do you know?
Well, not much, Chris. It's been a little hectic here and there, but it's okay. It's about to settle in for football practice and get to go to practice every day and see what's going on. And it's pretty close right now, so everybody getting psyched up here in Boulder.
Did you have one last little breather before you got into, or did you just dive into the deep water, man, when it got to this time of year?
You know what? My wife and I would go up to a little place up in Chicago the night before it all started, and we would just there was this little restaurant that we loved to go to, and we'd go up there the night before, and the next day it would all start. But we just had this little tradition where we did it and said, I would say, goodbye, dear, football's here, so off you go. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
That's pretty awesome. Well, see you after the bowl game, man. I like it.
Well, we hope.
Yeah, right. Well, Coach, I want to get your thoughts with Matt Rhule. He was a lot of fun to talk to when we got to sit down with him yesterday, and he's, fielding the expectation question, the buzz part of things, and he's keeping it simple. The guys are moving into the dorms here real shortly, and it's going to be a communal thing. I mean, they're all going to go through the grind of camp, and that's super important. But Coach Rhule was really good about not wanting to set limits when asked about, what success is. Is 10-2 successful? Is 8-4 successful? Sure, when you look at the win number, but he didn't want to say, okay, my team isn't good enough to win 4 games on the schedule or 2 games on the schedule. What was your outlook like when you got asked those questions?
Well, you know what we would do, Chris, is we would put our schedule on the board bottom to top, and instead of top to bottom. Mm-hmm. And then we would put tape across every game except the first one at the very bottom. Okay. And so then we had a gold square around the games in November. And so what we would do is we would just go one game at a time. There wouldn't be any game on our schedule except the game that we were going to play next. And when that was over, we'd take the tape off the next one, and then we'd go to that one. So, for example, when we went to the Rose Bowl, no one would have, I'm sure there wasn't anybody betting on us going to the Rose Bowl in Vegas. And we didn't put a limit on us when we did that either. You always held up. That was always your goal, is to get to the Rose Bowl. And that was there every year. And you just climbed it. You just took them one day at a time, and we thought we were going to be good enough to go to a bowl game. But for us, it was always getting to the championship game and at Colorado, getting to the championship game and getting to a bowl game. And the national championship was always the one everybody wanted to go to, but that was at the very top. And I never really got a chance because of Nebraska to play in that game. But it was other than when I was an assistant in Colorado, we played it twice. But so that's how we handle. We just said, success is what we're going to make it this year, and we can't always control everything, but we can control just thinking about one game at a time.
Coach, Nebraska's AD Dannen yesterday was asked kind of a similar question. How does he define success for Nebraska this year? And he gave an analogy that I thought was interesting. I'm not sure if it works. I want to get your thoughts on it. He compared it to track and field, where if you're running...
that answer. That was good.
If you're running in lane 4, you define your success by what goes down in lane 4, not what's happening in lane 2 or lane 1 or lane 8. The success is compared to yourself, your own expectations. What did you do in your running lane? Is that an analogy that works for football and works for Nebraska, given where Nebraska's at in its rebuild?
Oh, yeah, totally it does. You got to take care of what you can control and what's in your lane. And, yeah, totally it does. And, I'm sure Coach Rhule's doing it that way. But, yeah, that was a good answer.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Dan Lanning today, and he is confident. He has got a really good program. Lincoln Riley yesterday was, bristly a little bit with some of his questions that he took, and Rhule charmed, and there's real excitement. Coach, I want to talk recruiting for just a second because the camp's going to get underway here shortly. But Dylan Raiola is taking the lead here, man, with some peer recruiting, and it's some really high-profile guys. Number 1 offensive tackle in the country, number 1 wide receiver in the country, and another 4-star that's committed to Oregon. And they're all going to be here this weekend because Dylan's putting the work in. Now Dylan's putting the work in with film study and throwing as well, it sounds like. But what does that say to you about, a quarterback of his reputation coming in, working to get other perceived high-level guys to campus?
Well, that's what you want. You want player-led programs. And if you've got a guy that's doing that and he carries enough weight with his name and his reputation to attract and influence other players, that's what you want. and then you just got to make sure things go his way. You've got to. You'll see what he's really like when he loses a couple of games, or if he does, he may not lose any. But that's it. That's all the stuff that's easy to do before you played a game, and before you've had a setback. Mm-hmm. That's when you'll find out what he's all about. But at this point in time, that's what he does. That's who he is, and you want all that you can get. But like I said, you find out what you're really about is when you have the setbacks.
Well, Coach, how do you want your star quarterback to handle a loss, to handle a setback? Is there a right way to go about that? Does it vary on the person? What do you want to see from your quarterback?
Yeah, you know what? It's sort of like what the AD said, stay in your lane, and that is, be the same. No matter whether you win or lose, be the same guy and be consistent. Don't fall victim to the hype, and don't fall victim to the criticism. It's the next game up, it's the next play up, it's the next team up, is the way you approach it. And that's what you want your quarterback to do, because everybody's going to look to him. And good or bad, they're going to look to him.
Coach, when you look at the Big Ten this year, what's a team or two you're intrigued by? And there's also a new face, Signetti from Indiana, that he's making some friends in the media because he's quite a soundbite.
Yeah, I understand that. I think probably Oregon is the team I want to watch. I mean, when I looked at the predictions for the Big Ten, 3 of the 4 teams coming in the Big Ten were ranked in the top 9. What's that say to the Purdue's, the Illinois, the Minnesotas, the Michigan States? You better buckle it up, because these guys that are coming in, they play a little different brand of ball, and they're not going to let you just say, "Hey, we're in the Big Ten. You better watch out." They're bringing their own stuff, and that's what I'm really eager to see. See how those teams handle the Big Ten. If it's a difference for them, it may not be any different for them than playing in the Pac-12, but I think the Big Ten's going to see a little different style with these guys coming in.
That contrast is super intriguing, isn't it? Can what you do work in the Big Ten, or do you have to change if you're a Pac? I mean, I don't think Oregon does, but I think other teams have to look at it. I mean, Nebraska, from a defensive line standpoint, going back 12 years or whatever it's been, I mean, that was an issue, and it's been an issue for Nebraska, right? You weren't as good in this league now as you were supposed to be coming in out of the Big 12. How do these teams adapt and survive, and what do they do? I mean, it's going to be a real trial this first year for a lot of them.
No question. And when you think as a coach, the best defensive linemen in the country are in the SEC.
Yep.
And that's why it's hard to run the football, and why they put pressure on you. What is it that the Big Ten has that's the best in college football? I don't know. But when you think of the Pac-12, you think of running and gunning, you think of great speed, you think of skill, you think of great quarterbacks, that put up big numbers. And so how's that going to work? And that's not true of every team, obviously, but I think that's the image that people have. So it's going to, who is the Big Ten, I think, is what you're going to find out after these teams make a run through it once or twice.
One of the things that Matt Rhule talked about yesterday, Coach, was the fact that the Big Ten is now truly a coast-to-coast conference. They have the entire United States, aside from maybe that little belt down south that is still an SEC stronghold. But that's one of the years where Nebraska struggled. It wasn't the first couple of seasons of the Big Ten. It was once the recruits that they had to bring in, once they joined the Big Ten, started needing to get the significant snaps. That's whenever struggle started for Nebraska. I think they kind of lost their recruiting hotbeds that they had traditionally in the Big 12. Do you think that is a factor at all with the USCs and Oregons of the world? I mean, the West Coast is now going to be open for business for the Big Ten, so do you think that's going to be a factor for them 3 or 4 years down the road?
Yeah, I do. I think so, especially with the portal being the way it is now, to where a kid's decision isn't nearly as important as it has been in the past, because you pondered it. Your parents were involved. The coaches were involved. But right now, and you couldn't make a mistake. If you made a mistake, you're stuck there. Well, now that decision isn't nearly as important, because if you make a mistake, guess what? You can up and leave. And so I think you'll see more kids take a chance on Big Ten teams, because they can always go home. They couldn't do that before. I'm talking about kids on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll open it up. You're going to have to prove your value. You're going to have to, they're going to have to be successful where they go in order for them to stay anymore. But I think you'll see more of that, and that'll be interesting to watch.
Coach, I want to get your thoughts here on the roster cap. 105 is sounding like the number. I know that there needs to be a balance here for the world of athletics in Title IX, but to me, this cap on how many kids you can have is tough, because it's not pro ball. You got young guys coming in that need development, and the more the better, depending on how you practice. What's your reaction to that number that's being floated, the 105? What did you usually hover around? How many kids on the team?
Well, you guys are a little spoiled there in Nebraska, because you've had, I know there was years where you had 180 guys out there playing. Yeah. And it's been such a tradition at Nebraska, the walk-on policy, but we operated about 105, maybe 110, but we could never keep the 110. The kids that would come in and walk in, and it was very rare that a walk-on would stay 4 years as a walk-on, either because he got tired or he just didn't feel like he was getting a chance, or he did get a scholarship. But, it's 105 to 110 was about what we would shoot for every year. We could only bring 105 to camp, anyway, that was the rule.
Okay, usually it is a set roster of 110, isn't it?
No,
No?
No, there was a camp rule, and maybe it's changed since I was last in it, but we could only have 105 come to preseason camp. Okay. Now, that would be 85 scholarship kids and 20 walk-ons, right, is what it boiled down to.
Okay. Weekend looks like what, Coach? You firing up the smoker? Is it golf? What's happening?
I got one more busy weekend, and then things are going to cool down, Chris. So I've been going traveling and doing stuff. I got to travel on Saturday and get back Sunday, and then I'm all football from there, football and golf from there in. So
well, good luck with the travel, because some of us haven't had great luck with it.
Yeah, I know that's been tough. I've traveled the last 4 out of the last 5 days, and I was, I didn't have any problems, but a lot of that was on Southwest, and they didn't have delays there.
Do you ever sleep in an airport before?
Yes, I have.
Oh, good man.
Once. Never doing it again.
You're preaching. I love it. Coach, you take care. Thank you so much.
All right, great being with you guys.
All right, there he is, Gary Barnett. He votes no as well. Sleeping at the airport. Completely overrated. We'll check in. Bill Bender. We caught up with him at Big Ten Media Days. His take on the Big Red and his thoughts on Matt Rhule and Nebraska. Excited to talk with Bill, one of the lead voices and writers with the sporting news and college football. Bill Bender. Next, good stuff from Gary Barnett. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and always like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube. Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, Hail Varsity continues. Lucas Oil Stadium, Day 2, Big Ten Media Days. Sporting news, college football man Bill Bender at Bill Bender 92. And yes, that is a picture of a Wookiee, big Star Wars guy.
How's it going? Thank you so much for having me on. I know it's good to catch up in person.
It is, man. We see each other once a year. Right? Hey, there you are. Nice to hang out and do the college football chat here in Indy.
And
Pretty
Bill,
fun.
Bill, also good to see that you got the black quarter zip memo today.
Yeah, it is. Right?
It says Sporting News on it. I think I'm on the right side here. Yeah, we're happy to be represented here. Day one was, I would say, today, day two, obviously, there's going to be a lot of energy. There's going to be, all the teams that we had here on day two. It's a lot. Because those are the teams looking to contend in 2024.
It's a lot of juice today, and we'll start with Nebraska in that context of contention. Some teams dark horse, others middle or kind of second level. Where do you look at Nebraska here as we get closer to kickoff?
Well, it sneaks up on you, and as you guys know and probably don't want to talk about how long it's been since they've been to a bowl game. I think it starts there.
It's been a topic, right?
Starts there. Get to a bowl game. Who's going to be part of that second tier of the Big Ten? And that's a question you and I have talked about. I mean, I think most people assume that first tier this year will be some combination of Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, maybe Penn State. Who's the second tier? That's an open-ended question because you could make a case from anywhere from USC to Iowa to Nebraska, and we know Nebraska can play with Iowa. It's winning those games and winning those close games that will be the challenge for Matt Rhule. I expect him to dazzle as usual. He's one of the better coaches on the podium that attracts us. But, beyond that, you still have to go out and, win the football games.
It's Bill Bender with us here from the Sporting News, sitting down in Indy at Lucas Oil Stadium with Schmidty. And Bill, you talk about this Husker football team. Around here, at least, there's been a moderate amount of pressure put onto Dylan Raiola, the freshman quarterback. He's the presumptive starter. I want to get your take from the outside looking in, just whenever you evaluate a freshman quarterback coming into college football, what type of expectations are you putting on him, expecting him to be the starter this year for Nebraska?
Well, I mean, adjusting to the speed of the game. It starts with that. You definitely want a guy, the talent's there. The talent's obvious. And can he be a game changer for the program? Absolutely. Now, when you come in, does the game – you always hear that phrase from coaches. I know it's cliche, but is the game too fast? Has it slowed? When you hear Raiola say it's slowing down for me, I would assume that you're going to see better results on the field. That schedule is set up for you guys
Great
know.
Start.
It's set up for you.
So the last 24 hours, though, the schedule that could be 7-0, I've slammed my boot here on the brakes with someone's talking me into the Buff, someone's talking me into Rutgers being a scare factor. So 7-0, 5-2, but better than it's been the last several years, where it's been stuck in the mud of gaining any sort of momentum.
Well, and you circle a couple games. That Colorado game obviously is going to get a lot of attention for us, and you know that, and it's going to be fun having them in there. And I think you guys will finally, because of what Dion brings and into a stadium, that is going to be a rabid Memorial Stadium, right? Am I wrong?
No, it's going to be blood in the water.
Right, like they're going to be ready to go there.
There will be not Coors, Busch Light, or Miller Light available in Lincoln that day because it'll all be gone by noon.
Yeah, they'll be sold out. And, and then you kind of circle my way. As you guys know, I'm in Central Ohio, the Ohio State game, because to me, that's the first Ohio State game where they're seeing a team that is, they play Michigan State, but I don't want to talk down about Michigan State. But when Nebraska comes in there, that's a real game because you look at what else they have coming. They're going to have to play Iowa, and then they have that big one in Oregon. So I'm intrigued by Nebraska-Ohio State. I know Nebraska, when they play Ohio State, they get up for them. Those are games. Those aren't traditionally not blowouts, at least unless I'm missing one. I know Scott Frost took a team into Ohio Stadium that they competed for 4 quarters. Didn't win the game.
There's been a couple of games that can't be aired on BTN because it was an execution. But for the most part, there's been some feistiness with Nebraska.
In the first half especially. Yeah. Even the one where they played in Lincoln a couple of years ago. I believe Justin Fields was at Ohio State. It was a fight early. And then
tighter ball game.
The depth wore on them. So, I'm excited to see that one. I'm excited to see how Raiola responds to playing in that stadium, in that environment. So, but like we said, schedule set up for a fast start. I think Matt Rhule's done a really good job in recruiting. And again, he can charm us. When you're a writer, there's certain coaches that charm you a little bit, and then you start to pull for him a little bit. So I want to see Matt Rhule do well. And I think the steps of improvement are going to be there to push them into that second tier if they can avoid the ones that you guys always talk about, the 1 or 2 heartbreakers in there.
Bill, any thoughts of making it out to Lincoln for that Nebraska-Colorado game? Because if you do, the first few red beers will be on us.
Yeah, I would love to come out, man. I definitely need to get out. We're making our early plans. I know one of the early ones we have circled is Michigan, Texas. That will be up for that one, because the more I think about that game, most people are assuming Texas is going to win, and I just would not assume that a team that lost both of its defensive tackles is going up to Ann Arbor. You guys know what Michigan likes to do. And Michigan lost 13 guys to the NFL, but what they didn't lose is 4 or 5 first-round picks off their defense. I'm probably going to – I could call that upset now, but I think I'm going to wait and see week 1 and watch what I watch. And then what if – here's a big what if. What if Quinn – tweaks a hamstring or something, and then Arch comes in? Is the internet going to shut down along with all the beer that's going to be shut down in Lincoln?
Yes, if Arch Manning gets the nod in that environment, it's going to be an incredible day for college football. But yours is fended off a first family of football name who's also talented, dealt with the pressure. And then, by the way, just kind of shut up and gone to work with his personality. And that's one thing when we talk about quarterback play with Dylan Raiola, is a guy that is also someone that's got a really good work ethic from a fantastic family. But he wants the moment. He wants the juice.
Well, I would ask you, if I could play reporter for a minute, I mean, the excitement level, we can say that from afar. But, I mean, I'm sure with you guys, how is Matt Rhule tempering that? Like, can you it's still
a 3-horse race for a quarterback. There's been no announcement. There's an assumption by us locally, but there's been no flag planted here that it's the freshman. Well, it should be.
But when he takes that first snap, everybody's standing up.
Yeah,
everybody's going to stand up, applause. You have
and he knows the moment though. That's what he wants.
Well, and to add to this, whenever he gets a question about the quarterbacks, he'll speak briefly on what all 3 can do, and he likes to divert as well and talk about the weapons that were added this year with Nayor coming in from Texas. You had Banks in from Wake Forest. You talk about Dowdell, a running back from Oregon, the offensive line. He talks about the complementary pieces around whoever gets to start at quarterback. So as opposed to all the pressure of the world being on Dylan Raiola, the pressure seems like it's more on the pieces around the quarterback to make the quarterback look good, to make the quarterback's job easier. Right, for sure. And I think that's just keeping it simple, quick read, good, those kind of things that you want to do well. And for me, I think that expectation, the excitement should be there, because if he comes in, steps in, plays well, the defense last year for Nebraska, I've said this all along when I would watch them, and it's a cliche again, but they play hard, they fly to the football. And a second year in that scheme, it's going to be a big difference maker for them on that side of the ball. So there's a lot of excitement. And then if I could change the subject just a little bit, I just looked at this USC banner a few minutes ago, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, USC and UCLA are here. Just the surrealist nature of these schools that I grew up in Ohio watching in Rose Bowls play against the Big Ten and seeing them here. It's still like you got to do a double take. Oh, yeah, they're here.
La La Land, right? But, man, there's so much talent. There's so much explosiveness offensively with USC, and you've got a quarterback whisperer that needs to find a defense.
Right, and that'll be the big key for them. And then UCLA coming in with Deshaun Foster, who we remember as a player, and I'm wondering if they take his attitude as a player into on the field. Sometimes you're a reflection of your coach and that kind of thing, and I think that could happen as well. So very excited to see what they say on the podium, how they feel about being in this conference. Nebraska, as we've talked about on your show, kind of the midpoint of everything now. Midpoint of everything east, midpoint of what's going west, and how they recruit will be interesting to see, because can you pull those kids from the Midwest, and then will Nebraska add more kids from the West Coast with the ability to say, hey, you're going to play at Washington, Oregon, UCLA, USC. Who knows in 2 years who else they're going to add?
Bill, I want to get your take here. Bill Bender with his sporting news at Bill Bender 92. What happens with Clemson and FSU?
Well, Tony Petitti he wasn't going to tell a room full of reporters yesterday.
Guess what, Bill?
Guess what, guys? We're adding Clemson and Florida State tomorrow. No, we knew that wasn't going to happen. And he did. I thought he made a good point to say we're going to focus on the 18 because you're bringing in 4 new schools. You're bringing a lot of logistical things. And it's still football, as Greg Schiano said. We'll be able to make that work. But Florida State and Clemson, if you bring them in, it's a whole new animal. Now, that said, the fact that we have a conference with 2 major schools with active lawsuits against the conference, I can't imagine coming to this event and saying
little chilly in the room.
Like if Ohio State and Michigan had active lawsuits against the Big Ten, that would be all we were talking about for 3 days. So it's something to monitor, because if the ACC were to break up, I mean, the Big Ten would have to be proactive and go after some of those football brands.
Some of those brands for sure. Bill Bender with us, Sporting News. Bill will check in during the season. Thanks so much.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate all the Nebraska fans on my Twitter and read my articles. We'll have some analysis from today. I totally appreciate it.
So it's Bill Bender with us from the Sporting News. He sat down with Schmidty out at Big Ten Media Days as we roll through a Thursday edition here. Schmidty is with us. Yes? Hi, Schmidty. It's good to see you.
Dude, I had to go pour some more water. Bill Bender's
pour
awesome.
Some more water. I was wondering maybe you're taking a shower and getting a change of clothes because you haven't had a chance to do that just yet.
I have not had any time to shave or clean up. It's all right, brother. It's football season. Let's roll the old sleeves up.
Here's an idea. How about you just keep on growing that beard out?
Can't do it.
Can't or won't?
I won't. I'm going to look like Santa Claus. It's too white and salt and peppery.
Maybe the thing is I've never seen you.
Do you want me to go
Ryan?
Look. Do you want me to go Ryan Day with this thing?
I mean, could be fun.
No, I'm going to have to get the old Just for Men out for the beard and touch it up because it looks too Kris Kringle-ish. To be honest,
maybe it'll make you look dignified.
It'd take a lot more than the 5 o'clock shadow to get me dignified. We
could let it rock through fall camp. You and I both. You've got the better beer by the time the season rolls around.
And that's hot and sticky. No. All right, let's talk buckling up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives and prevents injuries. Make it click. And a message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through a Thursday here. Schmidty again sits down in studio. Schmidty, I got a new hat during the break.
You did.
It's a beauty.
It's okay. No, you got a Denver hat.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Broncos
Get
hat.
The old donkey logo.
I have one at home with the old D.
The orange D with the blue hat, and then the old the Traveler, the horse.
Yeah, I have that. I have one of those on my hat at home.
Yeah, go with the John Elway era Denver gear.
It's hard to match that Broncos color with anything that's currently in my wardrobe.
Look at you worried.
It's a real concern.
It is. What kind of concerns does Mr. Troy Dannen have? Big Red Football is knocking on that door to be relevant, be good. You've heard from Matt Rhule yesterday with us and different parts of his national sit-down, be it with ESPN and Mr. Thamel or Mr. McAfee or Andy Staples. I mean, the rounds were had, God love him, from Matt Rhule. So let's hear from Troy Dannen, Nebraska's AD. And what's really cool is just how on the same page they are. This is what I want, this is what I need, and this is why I want it, this is why I need it, and it's going to result in wins on the field. That's the communication, and that's pretty awesome and refreshing. Here's Dannen, and he is juiced, man. He is going to be front and center. He may even have some red face paint on.
I actually love to hear Matt speak. You know, he gets me fired up, gets me excited. I'm already pretty excited. I don't think this is, I think, football season 18 for me. Never looked forward to one as much as I'm looking forward to this one. But this is what really gets it started.
What's the thing that you look forward to most? Why do you say that?
I want to see what that stadium is like. I've been in it. I've never been in it for a game. You know, this is one of the bastions, the cornerstones of college football in Lincoln, Nebraska. And to be a part of it and be able to have some ownership in it, I'm really excited. I want to see what it's like. I want to feel that energy inside the stadium that Matt's been talking to me about since I got here.
So that's right on point, man. Absolutely right on point, and it's a group effort. And he's the point man. He is the AD. He's the wheeler and dealer. He's the seller. He's got to do the NIL part of things. And don't kid yourself, Matt Rhule's really active with that as well. Just know what his program needs. So let's talk about the definition of success here from the man in charge. That's Troy Dannen.
If you go into any game and you don't expect to have a chance to win, and that's all you hope for. One of the things I've told every coach and I've told every athlete as I've met with them, all the best we can do, and I'll use a track analogy, and we're in lane 4, we're going to run as fast as we can in lane 4. We're going to be prepared in lane 4, and at the end of the race, lane 3 may beat us. We can't control necessarily what happens in lane 3, but if we do everything right in lane 4, that is the best we can do. And so, it is sports. Weird things happen in lane 3, and sometimes you don't perform in lane 4 the way you want to. But the one thing I do have confidence in our coaches and our staff, and this across the board, not just football, we're really well prepared to make sure we do and optimize ourselves in lane 4 as best we can.
That analogy is what you articulated earlier, Elijah. And, yeah, there's going to be someone bigger, stronger, faster next to you some days, some Saturdays, and it is what it is. So do you lose every race? You can't. Do you win a handful of them? You need to. And where is Nebraska right now in that pole position? That's a question.
And what's interesting about the track analogy, and I was not a track athlete in any way, shape, or form. It
makes me sad.
That was not me. 100-meter dash, 200-meter dash, anything that involved running, not for me. But I will say, I know enough about track to know that sometimes what gets people their PRs is whenever you're running next to that person that you're trying to chase down. Whenever the person right next to you in the lane next to you, that's the person that's going to win. And, hey, you might not beat him today, but you turn around, you get to the end of your race, and you look back, and that was a PR for me. Did I win the race? No, I finished in second because the person next to me, man, they were a monster. But I ran at my best because I had that benchmark to chase. I had that person in front of me that I was trying to track down throughout the whole 200 meters. That's what's interesting about the analogy to me is it's not Dannen going Bill Moose and saying 6 wins, yeah, that'd be great.
Or you better get us now.
It's not defining success on wins or losses. It's defining success on what's internal. And you know what? You can lose a race and still have your PR in track and field, and that can be a successful day for you despite the fact that you're not standing on top of the podium.
Well, and that can be a really well-respected PR. How about the topic of the needs and wants list from Matt Rhule? Those guys are talking about what gives Nebraska a chance to win.
Well, I joke, and he gave me a list the night that I came to campus. I landed about 10 p.m. At 11 o'clock, he was taking me through the Go Big facility at the time, now the Osborne Legacy Complex. And he handed me a folder. It had 17 things. These are the 17 things I think we need to do to win here. And someday, someday that'll be a list of 27, right? And someday it'll be a list of 35. But someday I'll bring that list out because it's in a folder. It's locked in the bottom of my desk. But he's right. He's been right on almost every one of them. He may be right on every one of them. So, he's the expert. He's built programs in places that are harder to build than at Nebraska. So leaning on him, my job is to facilitate his needs. One of the things as a staff, we told all the staff doesn't work, or the coaches don't work for us. We work for them. And our job is to empower their success. And so Matt's done a really good job for me of defining what needs to happen in order for success to come his way.
Talked to Coach Barnett about this to get hour 2 kicked off. Roster limits that impact your cut 7 from A.D. Dannen.
The Big Ten in general has wanted larger roster sizes. Nebraska in particular, but a lot of the Big Ten schools have really built themselves on walk-on programs over the years. However, and I said this to Mitch a week ago, I haven't gotten too worked up. Matt's not gotten too worked up because the year before COVID, roster sizes by the NCAA were regulated at 110. And that's how many could come into camp was 110. And so we grew to 105 or 115 and 120 for 2 reasons. One, COVID, to have more kids with COVID going through, and then secondly, with the 6th-year kids, the extra COVID kids. So we were still able to recruit high school kids at the same numbers. So we're used to roster numbers that are a little smaller. Even while we have 140 going through summer workouts, the current rule is 120. So we're always going to have to make cuts when camp starts. It's just a matter of where do of those numbers in. And I said this, the details, the number is inconsequential as much as the details of how that number is derived. And does that number last throughout the year? Can we still have our 140? Can we still build that program and then come into camp with basically a cut? And we've all gone through cuts. But can we still do that? And those are the questions I don't know the answers to.
Let's hear about grass real quick. Huh? Some of us chuckled.
This is not the grass of 25 years ago. This is grass. A lot of stadiums host high school championships in grass. There are contingencies that you have to make, and we'll have a large crew that would take good care of that grass. But it wouldn't change what we do in the stadium now.
So, truth be told,
this ain't your grandfather's grass.
No, and I won't out who I made eye contact with and saw that person chuckle a little bit, and I chuckled a little bit, but I had to turn my head because there's 40 cameras, and the old backdrop was real. We'll wind down a Thursday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Well, here's Mac Brown. Some of you love Grandpa Mac. Many of you don't like Grandpa Mac putting that one finger up, not that finger, but the 1 second left. So Mac was able to shoot arrows at the ripe old age of 73. That's still young. Mac was asked about his age again at ACC Media Days. We got to do equal time here, don't we? We got to spend a little bit of a second on the ACC. So here's Mac Brown. Every coach recruiting against us, and don't kid yourself, Mac and Carolina have put 3 first-round quarterbacks into the league. Have they stuck? Not always. But he's been right there with Ohio State from a first-round quarterback pick the last 5 years. They've had a good run. So every coach recruiting against us says, I'm going to quit. And he's like, look, 6 of them have been fired. And they ought to be worried about themselves. Don't worry about me. And if I should still be able to drive, let alone put a headset on. Now, in all seriousness, that's pretty good response from Mac Brown. How do you think the Big Ten peers are receiving Mr. Congetti from Indiana? I keep screwing that up. Is it like Sig?
Singetti. Right?
Singetti?
Kurt.
You're right. It's Singetti.
Because the G is first, or Signetti? There it is. Kurt Signetti.
Signetti, like Sig.
Signetti, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Long dart netty.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Joe Camel. Or what was the camel that Ty Robinson had down in Arizona?
Humphrey?
Humphrey. But didn't he name him something else?
Started with a C because he got the alliteration going.
Right.
I should know that.
Wasn't Carmelo?
I asked the question. I should know.
No, that's okay.
I remember the camel's name was Humphrey. I remember that.
That's all right. Name. But the story, and go check the Ty Robinson sit down with us out, because we talk camels. I said Joe Camel. Some Camel Cash.
Everything you missed in the interview with Ty Robinson.
But it's on YouTube.
Camels.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Go get her all handled. And a lot of our media sit downs, of course. Go check out the Matt Rhule interview if you haven't. That was fun. Isaac Gifford was great. Super intense. And Mr. Scott, ready to rock and roll at center as well. And a lot of the great folks, a lot of national writers came by. That was awesome. Ian Fitzsimmons and company. You just heard from Bill Bender. Check it all out, Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. And the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with the audio portion, and follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio.
And the only thing the trip was lacking was some live updates from Schmidty at, was it O'Hare? Was that where you were, or Midway?
I was at O'Hare.
Okay, we should have had some live updates. Schmidty trying to get Garrett's popcorn at 3 a.m. It could have been fun.
I did have
airport adventures.
I did buy caramel corn.
You have to.
I did have. I had a whopping 2 airport beers. In all sorts of travel.
What, 14 vodkas?
No. Stuck with whiskey. But it wasn't overdone.
For a second there, I was going to say you're a stronger man than I.
I wasn't overdone. But happy to be back in the great state of Nebraska. Appreciate all of you checking us out at Big Ten Media Days. And back tomorrow. Klausburn returns. Pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman is back. And we'll talk to you at 4 with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.